Most design codes and specifications require that certain load combinations be checked for the analysis. To review or change the load combinations, go to the Design menu and then select Load Combinations. By default, the design standard selected will dictate the load combinations, and those are automatically generated and shown here. Notice that the table is all grayed out, indicating that the values cannot be changed. Each row of this table represents a single load combination. The stress column is checked if this load combination will be used to calculate stresses. Some load combinations may only be used for deflection calculations, and we don't need to check the stress. The deflection column is checked if deflections are to be calculated for this load combination. Description can be very useful for reading the output and understanding which load combinations are controlling different elements of the stack. The stress factor is somewhat of a safety factor, and its specific use will be dependent upon the design standards that are selected. By clicking the Code Summary button, you can get more details on how the stress factor may be used for the standards which you have selected. The dead load is self-explanatory in that it's the dead weight of the structure. The Indian standard treats linings different, and so if you are using the Indian standard, then this column will be used. Any insulation or refractory will be considered a liner. The pretension is referencing guy wire pretension, and so this column is only used if it's a guy wire supported stack. It is not referring to any type of pretension that you may be using on any bolts for flanged connections or base plates. When you do have a guyed stack, pretension is necessary to maintain equilibrium. If the pretension is entered as 0, then there will be no tension on the cable and the system will become unstable as if there are no guy wires present. Live load are things such as personnel working on platforms or anything else that your standard defines as a live load. Operating loads are usually things like piping loads, liquid, etc. Thermal hot is primarily used for guy wire supported stacks. When the stack is hot, it will cause the stack to grow, and this will increase the guy wire tension significantly. Thermal cold is also only used for guy wire supported stacks. When the stack is cold, it will contract. This contraction will cause the guy wire tension to decrease. Wind loads represent the along wind loads on the stack. Seismic loads are those lateral seismic forces acting on the stack. Some standards provide a basis to calculate vertical loads due to seismic, and if that is the case, then that is what is represented in the seismic vertical column. Vortex refers to the equivalent static loads that are applied to the stack in an attempt to simulate vortex shedding loads. If the standard you have selected takes this approach, then this column will be utilized. Vortex fatigue is used when the standard calculates equivalent fatigue loads that are to be used to simulate vortex shedding. Pressure represents internal pressure and whether it will be considered in that load combination. We see that the load combinations are currently specified to be automatic. However, if we wish to change these combinations, then we click the manual button and now we are able to modify the load combinations as needed. The table becomes enabled and we can modify the table, add rows or delete rows. The stress analysis basis will automatically default to the selection that is consistent with the standard that has been selected. This is a very important selection because it will dictate the basis that is used to determine if the stack components are passing or failing. It is only recommended that this be changed if the user understands the risk. At the bottom, we have a code summary button, and as we mentioned earlier, it gives some useful information about the current basis for the load combinations. It can take considerable time to build a custom set of load combinations, and so there is an option to save those combinations so that they can be utilized on other projects, and then you can easily reload them. Once complete, then click Save to retain all of the changes that have been made.